Hello friends, this video on Control and Coordination Part 20 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now that we have spoken about the human brain, let us now talk about some actions which are very fast. We have here what did I say? That the neurons, that is the nerve cells, they actually help in carrying information from one place to another. And the brain is the one who actually is involved in thinking and taking decisions and all those things. So that means that whatever we see, that information first travels to the brain, and then brain takes a decision, and then the information is sent back to the muscles and the muscles take an action. That is what we understand so far. But there are certain situations where the responses are real fast. The responses happen almost instantaneously. For example, when we get an electric shock, we remove our hand immediately. So do you think that at that point, when we get an electric shock, we first think that what is happening? Oh, I am getting an electric shock, and only then we move? It doesn't happen like that, right? It happens instantaneously, immediately. As soon as you get the stimuli, immediately you respond. Right? So there are many such examples. For example, when you see this ferocious tiger, you immediately start running. You don't take much time to think and all. Or when you touch some hot object, you immediately remove your hand. Right? So these actions or body responses which are instant are called reflex actions. Reflex action means the actions which happens very fast. The response is very fast. They are called reflex actions. And these reflex actions are controlled by spinal cord. So the brain alone is not sufficient to handle the entire nervous system. Right? Because brain takes at least some time to receive the information and to send back the decision. Right? So for that we needed something else which can take the decisions which need some fast responses. So for that is the spinal cord. So now we will talk about spinal cord, and we will see that how spinal cord handles these reflex actions. So let us first talk about spinal cord. Let us see what is the spinal cord made up of and what is the structure of the spinal cord. So it is nothing but the extension of medulla oblongata of hindbrain till the lumbar region. It conducts nerve impulses to and from the brain, and it also controls the reflex actions. So here you can see this is the brain, right? This is the brain. Where is medulla oblongata? Medulla oblongata is a part of the hindbrain. So somewhere here is the medulla oblongata. So if you see, that tube-like structure keeps on extending. So this is the spinal cord. So it starts from medulla oblongata and it extends till the lumbar region. Which is the lumbar region? The lumbar region is, you can say that it is at the back of the abdomen. So here we have the lumbar nerves and all. So this is the lumbar region, somewhere near our back. So what is the purpose of this spinal cord now? It conducts nerve impulses to and from the brain. So the information to the brain and from the brain is carried by the spinal cord. It also controls the reflex action. This is one of the most important function of spinal cord, that it controls the reflex actions. So now in this picture you can see that from the spinal cord are arising so many nerves, right? So now in the next few slides we will see that what other functions does this spinal cord perform. So before that, let us have a look at the structure of spinal cord. What is it made up of? When we talk about the spinal cord, the way brain is a delicate organ and it needs a lot of protection, similarly spinal cord also needs a lot of protection. So for the protection of brain, we had the skull, we had the meninges and the cerebrospinal fluid. Similarly here we have vertebral column. It is very similar to skull. Like skull was a bony structure which was a covering of the brain. Similarly this vertebral column is again a bony structure which covers the spinal cord. So it is a bony structure which ensures protection to the spinal cord. So the vertebral column is a bony structure covering the spinal cord. In spinal cord also we have meninges, the same 3 layers of protective tissue. So it actually separates the spinal cord from the external world. We also have cerebrospinal fluid, which fills the empty space between the meninges. So this also ensures protection against shock and injury. So in case there is some injury at your back, so these meninges and the cerebrospinal fluid together will protect the spinal cord. So if you look at the structure, it looks like it is a rod-like structure. So here you can see this is the spinal cord. Now here, this is one layer, this is layer 2, and this is layer 3 of the meninges. So you can see, so the innermost layer is the pia mater, the middle one is the arachnoid, and the outermost is dura mater. Right? So these are the 3 meninges. What is vertebral column? It is the outermost bony covering, the covering which covers this entire thing, this entire rod-like structure. Cerebrospinal fluid is present between these layers, somewhere here is present the cerebrospinal fluid. So that is all about the covering part of the spinal cord. Now if you look at the cross section of this spinal cord, like if you break it at the middle and if you look at its thickness, like it is like a rod, right? So if you break the rod in the middle, you can see the cross section of the rod, right? So now the cross section of the spinal cord, let us have a look at that. So how does the cross section looks like? The cross section looks somewhat like this. It has a H-shaped structure like this. So it consists of a dorsal horn. So where do we have the dorsal horn? This is the dorsal horn. So here we have the dorsal horn. We have a ventral horn here. Now dorsal horn, ventral horn, we have the gray matter. This gray colored structure, that is the gray matter. We have white matter. Other than the gray matter, whatever is there, that is white matter. We have a central canal. You see a small hole here, that is the central canal. Right? Okay. So now let us see what is the purpose of the dorsal horn. So this dorsal horn, what does it do? It is connected to the sensory nerves, and the sensory nerves bring impulses from sense organs. So that means this side, or like this is the cross section. Please remember this is the cross section of the rod like structure. So in this cross section, on one side you have dorsal horn, on the other side you have ventral horn. So the dorsal horn is connected to the sensory nerves. So sensory nerves, the word sensory means this nerves is connected to the sense organs. So these nerves will bring impulses from the sense organs. So the sense organs will sense the external stimuli, then that information from the sense organs will be brought to the spinal cord through the sensory nerves. The sensory nerves will reach the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. Similarly, the ventral horn is connected to the motor nerves. So this side, the ventral horn is connected to the motor nerves. So these motor nerves carry responses from spinal cord to the organ. So this organ is the effector organ, right? So that means the dorsal horn will bring information from the sense organs, and the ventral horn will take away the information from spinal cord to the effector organ, for example, to the muscles. For example, let us take an example. Let us suppose if we see a glass of water in front of us and we are thirsty, so what do? Our eyes see the glass of water. So the eyes actually receive the external stimuli. The stimuli is the presence of water. So the eyes will send this information through the sensory nerves. So they will carry this information and it reaches the... Okay, I will not take this example. Let me take some example of reflex action, which will actually tell the function of spinal cord. Let us suppose when we touch a cup of hot coffee, what happens? The skin feels the heat. So we immediately remove our hand. So what is actually happening? The skin feels the heat. So skin is the sense organ. So the sensory nerves will carry this information to the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. Now the spinal cord will actually, this information will get processed in the gray matter of the spinal cord. So through the dorsal horn, it will come inside the spinal cord. So the information will reach inside. Now inside this gray matter, the information will get processed, and then the spinal cord will send the decision back through the ventral horn. The ventral horn will take the decision through the motor nerves to the muscle cells, and then the muscle cells will help in removing the hand. So that is how the information transfer happens. So in this case, what happens? The information doesn't need to reach till the brain. So the spinal cord itself takes a decision. So that is the purpose of the gray matter in the spinal cord. Then at the center there is a small central canal. So this is like the cross section, right? So when you look at the rod of the spinal cord, so many such things are joined like this, right? So here you have the central canal for each of them. Correct? So this is how the structure of a spinal cord is. Right? So the gray matter is the region where many types of neurons actually synapse here. That is, cross information between neurons happen here. Here interneurons also use this to cross over the side of the spinal cord. That means to go to the other side of the spinal cord. From dorsal side to ventral side, they have to cross the gray matter. Clear? So I think the structure of spinal cord is clear now. So let us now look at the mechanism of reflex action. So in reflex action, let us suppose we have a stimulus, for example, the fire. So the fire will give us heat and pain. So this stimulus is recognized by the receptor organs. So what are the receptor organs? The receptor organs are nothing but the sense organs. Right? So our eyes will see the fire, the skin will feel the fire. Right? Now these receptor organs will send this information via sensory nerve. So these sensory nerves will carry this information to the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. So it will enter the spinal cord through the dorsal end. Now inside the spinal cord, processing of this sensory information will happen at the gray matter. So processing happens at gray matter. Then the spinal cord sends back the information, that is the decision, through the ventral horn. So this decision is sent to the motor nerve. And these motor nerve then carries this information to the effector organs. What are the effector organs? Muscles. And these muscles then contract and relax to produce movement. So the response is the movement. Right? So this is what happens when you step into fire and you immediately remove your leg. So that instant action happens because of the spinal cord. Because in such scenarios, if you think that the information should reach the brain, in that case, the information will first go to the spinal cord, then spinal cord will carry the message to the brain. Brain will process it and will send back the information to the spinal cord. So there will be some extra time needed for that. Do you think that we can afford to spend so much of time under such situations? Because if every information goes till the brain and comes back from the brain, it will take more time. So by that time, the person's leg might get hurt, right? So for such instantaneous actions, such instantaneous actions are known as reflex actions, and for such actions, spinal cord plays a very crucial role. So let us look at some of the examples of reflex actions. For example, you would have seen that, let us suppose while eating, sometimes if you eat very fast, something gets stuck into your food pipe. What happens? You immediately start coughing. So when you start coughing, what happens is whatever has got stuck, that actually gets removed from that place. So this coughing is an instant action. You don't think what happened and what should I do, and then you start coughing. It just happens instantaneously. Similarly, when you touch a cup of hot coffee, you immediately remove your hand. Or when you get an electric shock, or when you see a ferocious animal like tiger, you start running. Mouth starts watering on seeing a delicious dish. You start sneezing with something when some undesired particle enters your nose. You would have seen it for yourself, right? Let us suppose if you are into a dusty area, some dusts enter into your nose and you start sneezing continuously. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.